Hey everybody, I'm Tim Wallace from Tim Wallace Soil Mix Supply, and welcome to the Soil Channel. Today we're here with Soil Master Joe, and what's today's topic?
In a word, Tim, dirt. What a better place to talk about dirt than out here at the farm and nursery. Some of the best inspiration for our videos come from customer questions or concerns. For example, we've both fielded questions something like, do you guys sell dirt? We usually have a follow-up question of our own. Well, what kind of dirt do you have in mind? And there's a reason we ask that question, and that reason is?
For 40 years, I've been telling customers what they need to know and not what they want to hear.
Right. They call and they ask for black dirt, and what they really need is clay. Or they call and want topsoil, and what they really should be using is a soil blend. So the question is asked not to be nosy, but we want to make sure that the customer gets what they really need for their application and their project, something they can use, and something that actually is worth the money they paid to have and have it delivered. Another situation we encounter when people have ordered dirt from someplace else is it didn't quite meet their expectations. In fact, Tim, you recently had an encounter with a customer who made a special trip to talk to you specifically about a problem he had with the dirt he ordered, correct?
Correct. So we had a customer come in over the weekend, and he would like to purchase a load of dirt, but he said he'd like to see what we have to possibly deliver to him. He brought a sample of what he had delivered over the weekend, and as you can see, full of balls, compacted material, which really won't do him any good on his project.
That's a problem we'd like to avoid. So again, we ask the question not to be nosy, but we want to make sure that the person gets what they really need and what they pay for. So that's the purpose of our video today, to give you an overview of different types of dirt so you can ask the right questions to be sure that you're getting the right product for the situation that you're dealing with at your home and in your garden. So let's go take a look at it. Today we're talking about dirt. Specifically, we're going to take a look at 5 different types of dirt. Each one of these types of dirt has its appropriate application depending upon the project you have in mind. However, not all of these types of dirt are good for every application. In other words, you have a specific project, you need a specific type of dirt. So we want this to be a practical overview of dirt. Think of it more as a show and tell rather than a science project. If you need technical information about dirt, things like particle size, chemical structure, etc., you can find all that information on the internet, and I'll speak more to that in just a minute. But today we want to make sure that you have enough information to know what kind of dirt you need for the project you have at hand, but also so you can ask the right questions, so you're not like that gentleman who came to see Tim about a week or so ago that ended up with a pile of dirt. He says, I can't use this. We want to make sure that you get the kind of dirt you need, the kind of dirt you paid for, and appropriate for the project that you have in mind. When you do an internet search about dirt, soils, different types, chemical structure, etc., you will literally get millions of responses. Some of those responses can be, well, in a word, misleading. And this is what I mean by misleading. The type of dirt we're going to be talking about today is the type of dirt found where we're located. We're about an hour southwest of the city of Chicago in Illinois, yes, the United States. We do have international viewers. So the type of dirt we're going to be talking about today is the dirt we find where we live. Our good friend Isaac, for example, who lives in south central Illinois, doesn't have this type of dirt in their farm fields. It's almost all sand. So the responses you get when you do an internet search could partially be because they're talking about the type of dirt where they're writing from or where they're located. So the type of dirt, again, we're going to be talking about today is located in the United States, just a little bit south of Chicago. And we'll be giving you an overview of those 5 different types of dirt, again, so you can have the right dirt for the project you have at hand. We'll begin our discussion of different types of soils by taking a look at this illustration of the soil profile, or the soil strata. The organic layer of soil is at the very top. Sometimes it's referred to as the O, or organic horizon. The organic layer is made up of organic materials like leaves, plants, and bugs that have decomposed over many years. It also contains surface litter, which is fresh organic material that hasn't fully decomposed yet. This layer is typically dark or somewhat reddish brown in color, feels greasy, and has a low compaction strength. It's also lightweight when dry and usually has a very high fiber content. The organic layer absorbs water, builds great soil structure, and holds great nutrients like carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen, sulfur that are so important for plant growth. So as you can see in the illustration here, the organic layer is the very top layer of the soil strata, with other layers below it, as we'll soon discuss. The next layer in our soil profile is the topsoil layer. Topsoil refers to the top layer of soil. Usually this layer is about 2, maybe 8 inches in depth. Topsoil is rich in organic material, including a high amount of decomposing plant and animal material, as well as a high amount of nutrients. Topsoil is usually black in color and typically used as the primary material in home gardens, flower beds, and the lawn. Black dirt is technically not the same as topsoil, even though it may look the same. Black dirt typically contains iron and other chemicals, which is what gives it that dark brown or kind of black hue. This material is also used in landscaping, gardens, and lawns, as well as for filling in low areas, maybe creating walkways. Because it's difficult to determine where the topsoil ends and the black dirt begins within the soil strata, and since this video is more show and tell versus science project, we'll be using these terms interchangeably. However, when you're looking to buy dirt for your lawn or garden project, you're always best to specifically request topsoil. Fill dirt separates the black dirt from the clay. This material is used primarily to fill in holes and other excavations in the ground, or to purposefully change the grade or elevation of a property. This product is usually taken from locations where soil is being removed, such as construction sites and digs for home foundations. In addition to black dirt and probably clay, most fill dirt will also contain rocks and sand. Usually just above the sedimentary rock layer, you'll find the clay layer. Clay soils are old, tightly compacted soils that have formed and condensed over long periods of time. Clay is very compactable and contains rocks. Clay dirt is great for making pottery and bricks, and as a planting media for some agricultural products like rice, as it does have some nutritional value and certainly it holds water very well. More often, clay is used to create a stable, non-porous building environment, and for most homeowners, clay will find very, very few uses in your lawn or the garden. And lastly, there's the bedrock. Bedrock is not considered a layer of soil. It is the solid rock layer that lies beneath the soil, forming the bottommost layer of a soil profile. This layer is often referred to as the R horizon. Essentially, it's the foundation on which soil is built upon, but not part of the soil structure itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, moms and dads, boys and girls, homeowners of all ages. The first guest today to the Soil Channel needs no introduction. Known far and wide, and especially to those who have ever had to dig in their yard more than an inch or two. Yes, it is the well-known, aggravating, frustrating, impossible to dig in, dreaded, lumpy, clumpy clay dirt. All right, so maybe that introduction is a little over the top. But if you ever had to dig a hole in the lawn for a fence post or to plant a tree or a shrub, or dig a trench for a retaining wall, you know how hard it is to dig through clay. The reason for that is one of its unique characteristics. The particles of clay are actually very, very small. In fact, it's the smallest particle size of any of the soils we'll be talking about today. When clay gets wet, it gets very wet. It wants to stay wet. Once wet, it almost self-compacts under its own weight. And what's lost is something called soil porosity. The space in between all of those particles is lost, so it's like digging through a brick. On the other end of the spectrum, when clay gets very dry, it gets very dry. Dry, crusty, and inhospitable to plants. About the only thing that can grow in there are invasive weeds. So imagine if you're having that much trouble digging through clay, how hard it is for roots to penetrate through there. Another characteristic of clay can be best described by, well, let's do it this way. How about a quick pop quiz, class? Ready? I'm about to show you two different piles of dirt. You tell me which of those piles is higher in organic matter or nutritional value for the plants that will go in it. Ready? Here's pile number one. or pile number 2? If you said pile number 2, you are correct. All you need to do is look at the black dirt. You can just tell that it's richer in organic materials. Clay, on the other hand, being light in color, it has some nutritional value for plants, but not a lot. You can use it for certain plants, vegetables, and flowers, but generally speaking, it needs to be amended with something like peat before it can be used. So when you couple these two characteristics of clay, it's not the best choice for most garden and lawn applications. Does that mean that clay has no good use or applicable use? Not at all. In fact, let me show you one really good use for clay, and for that, let's go catch up with Tim. So Tim, we're talking about clay, and from what I remember and understand, you recently had some clay brought out here to the farm, didn't you?
Correct.
How much actually came in from outside?
So just for the site behind us, which you guys can see, this is a little over 400 semi-loads to bring everything up to grade.
400 semi-loads. So you had an issue, just you needed to raise the elevation of the soil, right? But here's a question. I'm looking around and I see beautiful, relatively flat black dirt. Why in the world did you just not put your building foundation on top of that?
The problem with building on dirt, the soil is permeable where water drains through it, versus clay, it's a nice, tight, compactable material, good for building pads.
What about the lawn and garden? You wouldn't suggest clay soil to be used in the lawn or garden,
no,
right?
For your lawns and your gardens, no clay soil.
So for a homeowner, would there be any use for clay in their situation?
A good case for clay is if you're building a brick patio and before you put the stone on top of it, you would like a nice solid clay base.
Got it. So all this 400 loads of dirt had to be pushed and compacted, and it's fairly compact, but you're not going to leave it this way. Eventually you're going to put some sort of a foundation over here for the building, correct?
Correct. We've got to do what's called a final grade, and then after the final grade we'll put down 12 inches of road mix.
Got it. So was there no clay out here at all?
There was clay out here. It was about 16 to 20 inches below grade.
Okay.
So we removed the topsoil, put it in a pile, and then brought the clay in to bring it up to grade.
Okay, so there was clay out here, but not nearly enough, which is why you brought so much of it in. Makes sense. So you see, there is a use for clay, and here's one great example. Another suitable use for clay can be found when we answer the question, where did the 400 semi-loads that were brought out here to the farm actually come from? To answer that question, we'll take a quick trip over to a nearby village where a developer is finishing work on a community center that was once a vacant lot. Tim's clay came from a project nearby where the developer was required to create a stormwater retention pond. They scraped off the top layer of black dirt and quickly got to the clay layer. In this situation, clay is the perfect soil asset since it compacts easily and holds moisture so well. Had Tim not needed and agreed to take all the clay from this project, the developer would have not only had to haul it away, but also pay to dump it and pass the fee on to the property owner. In short, all parties benefited. And if you've ever wondered why the retention pond by you doesn't dry up, it's probably because the underlying soil is clay. Again, good for the bottom of retention ponds and as a base for buildings, not so good for the lawn or garden. Lastly, you see that pile of black dirt over there? That's the topsoil that was scraped off from the area of the retention pond. It'll be reused here on site for final grading and general landscape needs. This is fill dirt. Fill dirt's kind of a little bit of a combination of clay and black dirt. You can see by its color that it's got some nutritional value in it. It also has some clay in it. This kind of dirt's also going to be very, very difficult for roots to penetrate through, and therefore it's going to be hard to use directly in planting. The fill dirt we see in this pile is going to be used to backfill these areas where the pipes have been run. You can use fill dirt around your home to build things like landscape berms or to fill in areas where you've had trees or even in-ground pools removed. Just remember that when you're done backfilling, if you're going to facilitate planting, be sure to add a heavy layer of topsoil. So what would you call the kind of dirt that's behind me? Topsoil? Black dirt? Well, You'd be right if you called it either one of those two. I, however, refer to it as ICUI dirt. I can't use it dirt. This is the problem the gentleman had that came to see Tim a while back. He ended up with dirt like this. He ordered topsoil, he got it. He ordered black dirt, he got it. However, the ICUI dirt, I can't use it dirt, was because it was unscreened and unpulverized black dirt. So let's talk a little bit about this kind of dirt and what problems it creates. Unscreened, unpulverized black dirt, often referred to as raw or unprocessed topsoil, can present several challenges when used directly in the lawn or the garden. So let's go through and let me highlight some of the reasons why it might not be very useful and the problems and issues it can cause. One of the most obvious problems with unscreened, unpulverized black dirt is it often contains large clumps, rocks, and debris. When used directly, these clumps can create uneven soil surfaces that may not break down very easily. This can lead to poor soil structure, reduced aeration, and difficulty in planting and cultivating. Then there's the high likelihood of a presence of weeds and seeds. Black dirt that hasn't been screened may contain weed seeds, invasive plant seeds, or other contaminants. This can lead to weed infestation or the introduction of non-native plant species, which can compete with the desired plants for resources. Another problem with unscreened, unpulverized topsoil or black dirt is its texture. There is some fluffy kind of fine particles back here in the pile, but it's also full of these big chunks. There's no way roots are going to be able to penetrate through something like this, and forget it when it comes to trying to level your lawn with something like that. So does all this mean that unscreened, unpulverized black dirt or topsoil has no use other than fill dirt? No, not at all. It's very, very rich in nutrients and is exactly what we want in the lawn or the garden. However, what it does need is a little TLC, a diesel motor, and a machine like the one behind me. To our very observant viewers out there, you'll notice that the beans are gone behind this machine here. We waited to do this segment until the harvest was done, which was pretty darn important. That's been taken care of. But now we want to talk about this issue that we just mentioned. We have this pile of unscreened, unpulverized dirt here. I've referred to it a couple times as ICUI dirt. I can't use it dirt. But we want to ask Tim, how do we take dirt like that and turn it into something that's usable for the homeowner?
So what we do here is behind us, we've got, this is an old school machine. It's a Lindig. It's a model L40. And what this does is it screens it and it pulverizes it. And when I say pulverizes it, it has a hammer mill in it just on the other side of the hopper. So after the dirt goes in the hopper, it gets dropped down to the hammer mill, which is rotating knives, which chops it all up the conveyor belt into the screener. And then it screens out all the unusable dirt. And we end up with a nice pile of usable dirt.
So this one does both. It screens and pulverizes everything for us, right?
Correct.
Obviously, this is a little smaller than something I showed you a little bit earlier from our friends at DuPage Topsoil, because they're doing hundreds of yards at a time. But nonetheless, this is what you need to make sure your dirt is if you want it to be usable, screened and pulverized. Should we show everybody how it works, Tim?
Sure.
Let's do that.
now that we've ran a couple yards of soil through the machine, here is the soil that you guys do want for your projects. And here's the soil that you guys definitely don't want for your projects. So you can see the big difference of running soil through a machine that pulverizes and screens. You're going to get a lot nicer product in the long run.
Now's a great time to address the question, where does your dirt come from? Obviously, we don't have a factory where we make dirt. Dirt's been around as long as the earth has been around. But the truth is, most landscape supply yards that you buy black dirt or topsoil in bulk comes from, like here, out at the farm, or a development that was once a parcel of vacant land. I know it's hard to tell, but the area that we're looking at now, the area where Tim is going to be extending his building, was part of last year's cornfield. All of this black dirt I've been standing in front of and talking about came from out here at the farm. When the crews began, they started by scraping off all of the good, usable topsoil until they got down to the clay base. It was only then that they added extra clay to bring it up to the appropriate grade. The topsoil they scraped off is here in this pile. Now, Tim will use this for final grading at any landscape needs he has here at the farm. But in a lot of situations, if farmers don't need this kind of material, they'll contact a wholesale processor who will come out, screen, pulverize it, and then resell it.
Here's another great example to answer the question, where does your dirt come from? I'm at a housing development not far from the farm. This entire site, believe it or not, used to be polo and soccer fields, covered in nice green grass. So why now are we only seeing clay? Well, the first thing builders do is scrape off all the good black dirt, and they either haul it away or they stage it. Remember, like Tim said, builders want to work on the clay underneath. Why? Well, simply put, it's because houses and buildings can't be built on black dirt. It's simply too soft for the foundation, and it's also too soft for the heavy equipment and construction crews to work on. Most likely they and their equipment would get stuck, making a big mess and obviously more work. So in that situation, black dirt becomes the liability and clay the asset. Most builders will tell you that they save the black dirt to put it back on all the properties for final grading, and many of them actually do just that. However, I've seen some builders lay sod over rough graded clay. It works, maybe for the first year or so, just long enough for the builder and the landscape contractor to blame the sod's poor performance on anything other than their own failure to put a suitable soil base underneath the sod. In any case, the truth is, most if not all of the good black dirt is sold off to a soil processor and then to a wholesaler who can sell it to you.
By now, the question has probably popped into your mind, is it safe to use dirt that was formerly from a farm field? In a word, yes.
Farmers rarely use pest control and weed control chemicals in such quantity that there would be materials left years after the event. Even if the farmer was not environmentally conscious, he couldn't afford to use these products above the label's recommendations and still sell his crop and make a profit.
And for a little additional assurance, I am out at the farm, Tim's farm, where not too long ago there were corn growing in this field. More recently, beans, as you know. And Tim is now growing trees, shrubs, flowering bushes, and pumpkins with no issues in the same soil the crops were grown at not that long ago.
If the source of your dirt was once a chrome plating plant or a zinc foundry in a previous life, then there's a legitimate reason for concern.
Since farmland is not host to heavy metals or excess pesticide or herbicide use, there's no concern when you're planning on using this type of dirt for your lawn or even in your garden. The fifth type of dirt we're going to be talking about today addresses the question, is your dirt organic? Well, to answer that question, we must first come to agreement on what the definition is of organic.
We'll search the internet for a quick definition of organic, and we find one here from the Oxford Dictionary, relating to or derived from living matter. Okay, in chemistry it says relating to or denoting compounds containing carbon. I don't know if that still answers our question that we need to have answered, though. I like this one better. Produced or involving production without the use of chemicals. Since this is a simple show and tell, let's see if we can find an even better definition. I'm on a website for a company called Kellogg Products, and I think they have one of the best definitions of organic soil on the web. Organic soil, they say, is a soil that's created by the decomposition of plant and animal materials to create a nutrient and mineral-rich mini ecosystem with microorganisms that feed and breathe life back into the soil. Or to put it another way, organic soil is how soil exists in nature. And one last thing they say is, think of it as soil from the forest floor. In a scenario like this one here, we can be pretty confident to say there's probably been no chemicals added to the soil. However, there's no guarantee that forest soil will be nutrient rich. Some is, and some is not. And therefore it might be a poor choice as a source for garden or lawn soil. And then there's always the concern about bringing in some uncomposted weeds or maybe invasive plants, some of which can be pretty aggressive and hard to control. Lastly, since it's neither practical nor very responsible to dig up a forest for a few yards of dirt, the common sense way for you to get organic soil is to use good building blocks and have your soil assembled especially for you.
Most all the definitions you'll find on the web, and really what's in most people's minds when they're looking for organic soil, is dirt, like topsoil, that has been amended with natural organic matter rather than chemical fertilizers. In other words, good building blocks such as compost, manure, sand, and maybe other natural products. Regular soil or dirt is soil that has not been amended with any additional organic matter. Organic soil is always going to be richer in nutrients than even the best topsoil and better able to retain moisture, both of which really helps when you're growing plants. This type of organic soil is what people are really looking for, and this is the type of organic soil people can get, and you can have it assembled, an organic blend that will meet the specific needs of your lawn, your garden, or your landscape beds. So let me show you just a few of our amendment options and some of our soil blend options. An amendment is something you add to something else to make it better. In this situation, we'll be talking about different compost that you add to topsoil to make it better. The first one we'll take a look at is this composted horse manure. Now, this horse manure is aged and turned regularly. Fresh manure shouldn't be used directly in the garden, as it can actually remove nutrients from the soil and scorch your plants. Can be added, however, to compost heaps or tilled into your existing soil. Just a little word of caution, though, anytime you're dealing with any kind of manure product, composted or not, be sure you wear your gloves. Horse manure is high in nitrogen, which is beneficial for non-flowering plants like corn, potatoes, garlic, and lettuce. It also contains minerals like calcium and magnesium. However, I'd steer clear of adding horse manure to flowering and fruiting plants such as tomatoes and peppers. For those plants, mushroom compost would be a better option. But we do use this composted horse manure in one of our blends called Enriched Vegetable Garden Mix. Unlike the name suggests, mushroom compost does not contain any mushrooms. It's the byproduct of the mushroom farming industry. The growth medium of mushrooms is removed after the mushrooms are harvested. So a more apt name for this particular product is mushroom soil. Now, our organic mushroom compost is really an organic blend, a blend of composted straw, peat, composted horse manure, and then hardwood fines. That gives us a much drier mixture that allows us to put it through the pulverizer blender, because remember, all of Tim's mixes are blended rather than just mixed, and that requires the use of the pulverizer blender. The first thing I notice when I look at mushroom compost compared to the composted horse manure is certainly this looks a lot more like soil. That's because of the presence of peat in this particular mix. A couple cautions with this good soil amendment. Keep mushroom compost away from seedlings, and don't add it to soil where you start plants from seed, because the high salt in mushroom soil impacts germination. Most garden crops will benefit from mushroom compost as a soil amendment, especially plants that tolerate higher salt content and benefit from additional calcium, such as tomatoes and peppers. Again, don't use mushroom compost on salt-sensitive plants such as azaleas, rhododendrons, and camellias. Enriched topsoil mix will have this mushroom compost as one of its main blend products. In this big bin behind me, we have organic compost, which a lot of gardeners refer to as black gold. Remember, the term organic means related to or derived from living matter. So there are really two types of organic compost, green compost and brown compost. Green compost consists of fresh green plant material such as grass clippings, fresh leaves, or vegetable scraps. Brown compost consists of dry brown plant material such as fallen leaves, straw, and wood chips. A balanced compost should contain a mix of both green and brown materials. Organic compost is going to be rich in vital nutrients, including nitrogen, something you need for plants to grow up, phosphorus, what you need for plants to grow deep roots, and potassium, which is always going to be essential to overall plant health. When in doubt, organic compost is always a safe amendment in nearly all garden settings. Although you can grow plants in 100% compost, it's always best to mix it with topsoil. We use organic compost in quite a few of our blends, including Tim's Original Garden Mix and Raised Garden Bed Mix. And this is peat. Peat comes from peat bogs, many of which are found in wetland areas of northern Midwestern states. For example, ours comes from the great state of Minnesota. In the vegetable garden, peat helps to moderate extremes in soil dryness and wetness. That's particularly important when you're growing juicy fruited plants with tender skins like tomatoes, strawberries, and blueberries. In fact, these acid-loving plants and many other fruits and vegetables benefit from peat's lower pH. The product's sterility also means it won't introduce weeds, diseases, or pathogens that can quickly ruin a vegetable garden. Peat is suitable for a wide range of vegetables, including tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and lettuce. Use it on the lawn to lower high pH soils. For example, we use peat in our peat garden mix. One thing I do like a lot about peat is it will retain 25 times its weight in moisture. So if you're worried about retaining moisture in your soil, peat may be exactly the product that you're looking for. By far one of my favorite composts, and actually a customer favorite as well, you can tell by how low this bin has gotten over the season, is Purple Cow Classic Compost. This is a 100% plant-based and organic product, OMRI listed for organic production. That's the Organic Materials Research Institute. They list this product as being suitable for organic farming. This product is also guaranteed to be weed seed manure and pathogen-free. It's somewhat more finely screened than some of our other composts, and really it's our go-to compost when you're in doubt. When you're in doubt, consider using Purple Cow. It's our preferred compost option in things like our lawn repair mix and our premium raised bed mix. So let's do a quick review of our little soil show and tell. Today we've talked about clay soil, fill dirt, unscreened, unpulverized black dirt, screened and pulverized topsoil, organic soil. So hopefully, now that you have this information, you're more likely to get the correct soil for the project that you have at your home. Doesn't your lawn or garden deserve the best organic soil? When you want the best mix for the best result, it's Tim Wallace Soil Mix Supply. Before you go, be sure to click on that subscribe button to stay current with all of our Soil Channel videos. You can find us on Facebook at Tim Wallace Soil Mix Supply and on the web at timwallacesoilmixsupply.com.
On the website, you're able to see all the different soil blends we have for the lawn, the garden, planting areas, and even golf courses. Also, you'll be able to see what component products we put into each mix, information about those products, and the ratios of every one of our mixes. Under About Us, be sure to check out our blog post. Great information about caring for the lawn and the garden.
On behalf of Tim Wallace, I'm Joe. Thanks for watching. Grow and make it a great day.